Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's January 7th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, the news of the day obviously continues to involve a lot of recruiting. But first, I thought we would touch on what I guess is kind of becoming like our topic of the day. We've been doing quite a bit.
Crabbing? Stone crabbing?
Stone crabbing? No, we have worn out.
By the way, my stone crabbing partner has COVID, so there'll be no stone crabbing for me for 5 days. I don't know. Stone crabs are safe in the bay, Gary. You'll be very happy.
I am totally happy. Maybe
got your gift. My partner has COVID. You happy now?
Maybe the price will come down because now that you have to pay like the rest of us, maybe the price of the stone crabs will come down. But anyway, no, we're not talking about stone crabbing. Today, we're talking about an analysis of the talent gap that Mario Cristobal has inherited as head coach of Miami. No, we're not making excuses for Mario here 9 months before the season starts. That's not the point of this. The point of this is we have talked for really years about the talent gap at Miami and the fact that there just weren't enough elite players in the program. Well, now they're in the middle of recruiting. They're trying to get some elite players. It's looking like they will. But the talent gap between the Canes and the top teams in the country, Matt, going into this second half of the recruiting cycle remains pretty deep, as the research into that today shows.
Yeah, and I want to give a little background into the genesis of this. It actually came from one of the YouTube posters. Somebody posted, I want to say 2 days ago, asking, why should Miami have any issues maybe recruiting defensive linemen? They had 2 first-rounders last year. Something like that is what they posted. So I responded to that person, and thank you, whoever you were, because I responded. I looked up a few programs. I think I put in what happened in the last 4 years with 3 different programs: Alabama, Georgia, Miami, maybe Ohio State, or Oklahoma, one other one. It just to show that Miami just hasn't put out the NFL talent as some of the other top programs. And then I was working out this morning because I got to stay svelte. You know how it is, man. Just like you, Gary, right? You got to work off the stone crabs and the key lime pies. So I was just working out on my elliptical, which is in the corner of my home office here. And it just hit me like, I don't even know where these ideas come from, Gary. I'm sure you get ideas sometimes too. I'll sometimes write ideas on my phone in the middle of the night on a notepad. Like I'll think of something and I'll just jot it down. It just comes out of nowhere. I don't know where. Maybe somebody's whispering it in my ear while I'm sleeping, and I wake up and I say, oh, that's a great idea, and I write it down. I don't know. But it just hit me while I was working out that this is a good story idea. So I called you and sort of walked you through what I was thinking. And the idea of the story, the headline is Analysis, the Talent Gap Facing Mario Cristobal. But it's so hard to quantify the talent gap. That's what we attempted to do in this story using numbers instead of conjecture. It's easy to say the linebackers were awful. He's not inheriting any top NFL defensive linemen. The offensive line's been bad for a number of years. There's no reason they should be great this year. He has to do all of this through recruiting and the transfer portal. It's easy to say that. But when you can actually see it in numbers form, it strikes home. And that's what...
Yeah, it's real.
Yeah, and that's the eureka moment I had on my elliptical. Thank you to the YouTube person again, to try and find some numbers to quantify it. And I did find numbers to quantify it. And the funny thing is, when I set out to do this, the numbers, because I actually did the number part of it, it wasn't that I was looking for a certain result. I was just looking at the numbers. And shockingly, or maybe not shockingly, the top 2 teams that came up when I counted up all the 4- and 5-star recruits in the last 4 years are the 2 teams playing in the national championship game.
No question about it. Talent is what wins.
And two of the top 3 first and second round draftees in the last 4 years. In other words, the cumulative number of NFL draftees in the last 4 years. 2 of those top 3 are also in the championship game, Georgia and Alabama, with the third one being Ohio State, and Georgia's 1 behind Ohio State in that category. There's a correlation between being great and getting 4 and 5 star recruits, even though that's subjective and we all say don't listen to the star ratings. Well, it actually apparently matters. And
yeah, it always has.
So the general idea was, let's look at the talent coming in terms of 4 and 5 star ratings for the last 4 years. And we looked at 12 different programs, the top 9 programs that I thought have been really good the last few years, plus Miami, Florida, Florida State, and Oregon, just to give an idea of where these programs stand. Oregon, obviously, to see where Mario's been recruiting-wise and NFL talent-wise. And then we looked at the last 4 years in the NFL draft, adding up first and second rounders for all these 12 programs. And Miami's right at the bottom in both categories, tied for last in the number of draftees in the first and second round the last 4 years, with 2, both last cycle. And they have 38 4 and 5 star recruits in the last 4 cycles. Out of all those teams that we analyzed, the only team below them is Florida State. And that 38 is ridiculous when you look at Alabama had 89 in the same amount of time. Georgia had 71. That's the gap. So when we're saying talent gap, we're not talking about positions. We're talking about this is where Mario has to get the program to compete. You can't compete if you're not near those levels. It's obvious from these numbers because as you go down, Texas A&M, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Texas, Michigan, they're all way ahead of Miami in both categories. And those are the programs that you're seeing in the top 10 for the most part over the last several years, this year. So that's the challenge. And it's a really interesting article, I think. I think everyone should read it. I think everyone subscriber. Everyone who's not a subscriber watching, subscribe for one day and then cancel. It's worth it.
We've been talking about it for years, and it's been debated on our message boards for years. And some people want to blame coaching, some people want to blame development, some people. There's this guy, I think his name's Carlos Walker, that on a daily basis is just like pounding me on the YouTube comments and stop blaming the kids. I'm not blaming the kids. The kids can only be as talented as they are, Carlos. But
I'm Carlos Walker, Gary. Okay, that's me. It's my alter ego. I just like to annoy you. That's my shtick.
No, he doesn't annoy me. He's passionate. It's great. But the bottom line is that there haven't been enough elite players in the program to win the way that the fan base expects them to win. And that's Mario Cristobal's mission. And right now he's stressing over these coordinators. He's hiring his staff. He's trying to make it all count. He's got the money to hire, great coaches, and he's trying to make sure he spends it properly and everything. And trust me, the guy's working from 5 a.m. till midnight every day trying to make that happen. But there's a bottom line. And
listen, in Manny's defense, he worked from midnight to
God bless America, man.
Well, this is important.
I'm in the middle of a sentence. Just wait a minute. 1 second. Let me finish. I got another.
You ruined it.
I got another half a second.
I was going to say Manny worked from midnight to 5 a.m. You ruined it. Thank you.
Well, no, that's bull crap. But look, God, I forgot what I was going to say. Look, people have been talking about the staff seems to be leaning towards recruiters. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean these guys aren't good coaches, but the first thing that needs to improve at Miami is recruiting. And yes, there's nobody getting a staff position here at Miami under Mario Cristobal if they don't have the capability to be an elite recruiter and help him bring in elite talent. Because the one thing that he has learned, because he was at Alabama competing for national titles, it's about the players, okay? The coaches are important, but if you're going to compete for championships, you better have some dudes on the roster. And, I think that's why you're seeing what you're seeing as you wait for the final pieces of this coaching staff to come together. Go ahead, Matt.
Aren't you the Mr. Walk and Chew Gum guy? Isn't that you? Because you make it sound like it's just about recruiting. Here's the formula to success for me, and this is just my opinion. I'm sure people will vehemently disagree, as always, and roast me and make fun of me for having a son who rooted for Syracuse when I took him to all the Miami games as a kid. This is basketball talk again, and he rooted for Syracuse the other night. I was very upset.
Nobody ripped you for that. I was surprised.
Somebody did. I talked about changing the locks. I didn't change the locks. I felt bad. Anyway, the Walk and Chew Gum, Mr. Walk and Chew Gum. Listen, recruiters, I agree to an extent. I don't think that the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator should be better at recruiting than better at X's and O's. I want those guys the best possible X's and O's. I don't care if they can't put a sentence together in a recruit's room, okay? I don't care. They better be the best X and O's guys in the business. And
But the rest of the staff better be elite recruiters.
I want my position coaches. I'd rather they're better at recruiting than at coaching. And it's sad to say, but it's just difficult nowadays to get coaches that can do both. It just is. I'm just trying to think like a guy like T-Rob, I think, is a guy who can do both. There's just not a lot of guys like that. There's just not a lot because it takes so much energy to recruit. I was talking to Gary today. I'm like, man, recruiting just wears you out because there's the early signing period and then it doesn't end. There's the All-Star games, kids announcing there. There's the February signing day. And guess what? Then you're going into the camp circuits in the 2023. It's daily. And we used to do this back in the day. We used to have a magazine that we'd print, and we'd literally print out stories on our printer, paste them using glue onto a cardboard mount, and then drive them over to the printer to have them photographed and printed and sent out to our subscribers. Those days, there was no daily recruiting calls. There was barely even a Rivals.com. There was like BBS, which nobody knows what that means anymore. Do you remember what it means, Gary? BBS?
Yeah.
Something
bulletin board system.
There you go. Yeah. It's basically a message board because there was no way to build a website. I actually learned HTML. Remember, Gary, I learned HTML back then just to set up a BBS type thing for us.
It was great.
Yeah,
we had I think 2 servers in our office with all kinds of crazy modems attached to it.
Yeah, you told me we were going to get 2 servers. I thought you were saying we were going to have food catered into us. I didn't know what you were talking about. Then these computers show up.
It was great.
The servers.
At all hours of the day, you'd hear these modems buzzing with people calling in to get our recruiting info.
We had AOL. We had dial-up BBS with AOL. Anyway,
the origins of CaneSport.com.
The point is, things have gotten so different now, and kids are so different now, and it's hard for a coach to just do the daily grind when you also have to coach and develop and be babysitters. I hate to say it, but college coaches are babysitters. That's why a lot of college coaches want to be in the NFL, by the way. They don't want to be the babysitters. A lot of kids come from environments where they've been told they're the greatest thing ever. There's no repercussions for them. Kellen Winslow is a perfect example. Kellen Winslow Jr., he beat a kid half to death in California before he came to Miami. He was never reported. They swept it under the rug, paid the kid off not to press charges, comes to Miami, and you got to babysit the hell out of that kid when he gets here. And it didn't work out well for him, obviously, in his life, which is unfortunate. Miami did try to get him on the right path. CJ really did his best to turn the kid's life around. It just didn't work. But this is the kind of thing these coaches deal with. There's 105 kids on this team, and people typically say 3% cause the problem. On a typical college football team, you're babysitting half the team, 50%. Not that they're causing the problem, but they need guidance. They need father figures. And a lot of recruits will tell me flat out, I'm going to go where my position coach feels like a father figure to me. They didn't grow up with father figures, some of these kids. It's very unfortunate. So it's a tough situation where you're trying to recruit and coach and be a babysitter. Think about all that for a minute. It's 24/7, and you got your own family at home. A lot of these guys have young kids at home, and they have their own families. It's not easy being a college football coach. And if you get a great recruiter's position coach and he can't coach worth a damn, I'll take the recruiter. But you've got to have those coordinators be your X's and O's, amazing game day coaches.
And that's what he's certainly working on now. You notice the coordinator hires are going to end up being the last hires. I mean, he's working on that, trying to get the best guys he can. The thing that I've noticed in covering it, and I've been working hard not to get in the way of the process because hiring coordinators right now is very difficult. There's a shortage of coordinators, and you really gotta work behind the scenes. It's like if somebody sees that you're about to hire a coordinator, their stock's going to shoot up. So, the reason why there haven't been a ton of rumors around Mario Cristobal's pursuit of a coordinator is that it has to be conducted quietly. Otherwise, you're creating problems for yourself. There just aren't a lot of guys that are game changers, difference makers. And, but I do think that by early next week, and I know we've been kind of stringing this along, but I think by early next week, it'll start to take shape. The NFL season ends this weekend. I know he's been talking to some NFL guys and stuff. So, we'll see what happens there. That'll be a subject for another day. All right, Matt. So everybody should look at this analysis, and it kind of will give you perspective on where this team needs to go to become a contender in college football. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Now, Beyond that today, we have a ton of recruiting stories. I'm just going to shoot through them here quickly. We're not going to elaborate on them all. There's too many of them. Coach Salavea is in the house. Well, actually, I don't know if he's officially in the house because they haven't, I don't think, officially announced him in the house, but he's really been in the house for a couple weeks in terms of working on recruiting and stuff. And he's got a 4-star defensive tackle in 2023 by the name of John Walker from Kissimmee Osceola. Heavy pursuit of him. We've got a story on that today.
Let me say real quick. I know you're going to shoot through everything, but let me add real quick. He's coming to the Elite Prospect Day, January 22nd.
Yep.
And that's interesting and weird at the same time because typically you're not going to see Miami hold a junior day event the same day as an official visit weekend that's allowed. It's a little strange when they could do it if they wanted to during a different period of time. But it's actually paid off. We had a story yesterday afternoon. It's sort of paid off in a respect because you want to get kids there the weekend before signing day. And Ahmad Moten and Art Mason Thomas, the teammates, swapped up their visits from that weekend to the final weekend before signing day, which is when you want them there. Because the coaches said, hey, we got this junior day, but we want to give you all the attention. And so they switched their Oklahoma-Miami visits up, which is great. So you can read that story yesterday as well. But sorry, Gary, I always interrupt you. I'm a horrible person. Continue.
Always. And I'm trying to get people off to work here. Okay. I mean, some people like when we have long shows, but some people I assume have to get out and get to work. So I'm trying to keep this focused here. All right. So, this 4-star defensive tackle, John Walker from Kissimmee, is being heavily pursued by Coach Salavea. There's also an out-of-state 4-star defensive end from Columbus, Georgia, also 2023, by the name of Deron Reed, who's also being heavily recruited. We have a story on that today as well. T-Rob, name we haven't said a whole heck of a lot of lately, but it looks like T-Rob is back on the recruiting scene for the Canes. That's a good sign that he maybe is not leaving to go to Georgia or Texas A&M or one of those SEC schools that always want to poach an elite recruiting T-Rob defensive back coach who's pretty good. He's heavy on the trail of 4-star defensive back Elliot Washington from Venice, Florida. So Matt mentioned that there's 2 more visitors coming the final weekend in Ahmad Moten and R. Mason Thomas. They'll be joining Shamar Stewart and Christian Miller as defensive recruits that'll be there on the last weekend before signing day. So we'll see what happens there. And then we have a story about a kid named Jack Pyburn who decommitted Thursday from Minnesota and now is also being heavily pursued by the Canes. So a lot of recruiting action. It's only going to get more intense here as each day goes by and the coaches get into the building and they get themselves organized and start recruiting heavily for the Canes here in the last few weeks. They'll be on the road here about another week or so, I guess. Then we'll start having official visits on the weekends. You got that Elite Prospect Day coming on the 22nd. So a lot of action. Then the final weekend, of course, a lot of action going to be happening in the recruiting front.
And Saturday, everyone stay tuned Saturday. Kevin Coleman, Cyrus Moss, they could land both. So everyone should pay attention to that very closely. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely could land both of those guys.
Starting at 1 p.m., they stagger the announcements. So.
On the All-American game, yeah. So a ton of stuff going on, guys. Hope you guys are enjoying all our coverage. That'll be it for today. We wish you guys a great Friday at work. It's almost time for the weekend. Get fired up. And I guess that we will come back at you with Good Morning CaneSport again on Monday morning. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you once again for joining us on Good Morning CaneSport. Have a great day, everybody.